Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 103rd episode of the Manor Podcast. I'm your co-host, Roger Bodee, joined as always with my best friend and other co-host, Michael Hamilton. Michael, once upon a time, I had a list of questions, and I was like, I'm gonna be prepared. And I was like, we gotta make sure that we always have something really good and engaging to open the episodes with. But I would say it's been a running bit for the past, I don't know, month or two. I just come in, I just spitball it. I'm just ad-libbing off the top of my head every opening.
I think it's noticeable, honestly. I'm like, I don't think, like, sometimes you start going and I'm like, he's gonna figure out where he's going, but I don't think he knows yet.
I don't always know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going with this one yet either, but here we are.
Here we are.
Opening a podcast in real time.
We are.
There is a quick, small little podcast thing I want to talk about. And that's, if you're watching this on youtube.com, please hit that like and subscribe button. We're close to 2,000 subscribers. It'd be great to get over that. And if you're listening to this on the other podcasting platform, hit the follow button, please. That'd be great. Just those little small things are really helpful and help us keep us. Maybe if enough people get 2,000 subscribers, I'll start scripting opening to episodes again.
Is that a maybe or is that a commitment?
I said maybe.
Okay, that sounded like a maybe. I was trying to get a commitment out of you.
Do you want me to commit to you, Michael? Is this the next step in our podcast relationship? You want a strong commitment out of me now?
I think. Well, I've done 103 episodes. That's almost 2 years worth of episodes. I know we've had our little break in the middle, but 104 will be our 2 years of podcast episode, even if it wasn't 2 consecutive years.
Yeah, if you wanted to go back and listen to one episode of the podcast a week to catch up to where we are now, one extra podcast of the Manor Cast a week, it would take you 2 years to do that. That's crazy.
Well, if we stop now,
if we keep recording weekly, and they're like, "Oh, wait, I'm a brand new listener. I hit that subscribe button, I hit that follow button on the podcast thing, but I want to go back and listen to all the old episodes." If they listen to one extra episode a week while keep listening to the current episode, it would take them 2 years to catch up.
Yeah, you're right. That maths out.
Yeah, I know I'm not the Michael Hamilton of math, but I can do basic math. I hope. Otherwise, I'm in some trouble.
Yeah. You can do basic math. I've seen it.
You know who else can do basic math? The Realm Games can do basic math all day, every day, baby. They have to do it in order to have one of the best card shops in anywhere in the whole wide world and to put on the best card game tournaments anybody's ever experienced in their whole lives. You can't do it without math, baby. It's the fundamental bedrock of all business engagement. And by golly, the Realm can do basic math.
That's right. Speaking of the Realm, they have their Realm Fest coming up this weekend. This episode goes live on Thursday, so I will be in New Jersey when this is live or headed that way, and going to be playing in their Realm Fest tournament. I'm excited. I haven't played very much Flesh and Blood in the last month or so, but I'm going to have a good time anyway, so looking forward.
Yeah, I'm still playing some Flesh and Blood. I got my Bolton Armory deck cards right here. Ooh, look how shiny it is. And I'm in the league that means nothing, the TLNT. I finally figured out what that acronym means. And that's why my recording setup's a little weird. My angle's different because I have to be able to tilt my camera down to record a playmat. And I recorded my Bolton v Enigma game, which should come out next week, probably the week of the 21st or something like that, sometime around there. I don't know. It'll come out, and then people can see whether or not I get beat up by Enigma.
Yeah, I won't ask you how it went. I'll have to wait to find that out. But you can talk about that game if it's launched by the time of the next podcast.
It was a real nail biter. It was a real close one.
Okay.
It could have been anybody's game. But eventually, one person's life total points were reduced to 0.
That is generally how a game of Flesh and Blood
most of the time.
One person's life. Or you run out of time and it's a draw. Mm-hmm. And that's sad. No one likes that. Mm-hmm.
But today's episode isn't about Flesh and Blood, though. It's about sorcery.
Yeah. So we've been playing sorcery for a while now. It feels like a new game, but we've actually, even our first episode on sorcery was a long time ago. It was like right after we came back.
It was like a year ago. Yeah. No, we did sorcery. We did like 1 or 2 episodes about sorcery right before we did the hiatus. Because I know we released one, and then they invited us to dinner after we released that episode, and that was around Gen Con last year. So that would have been like around August or September last year, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So it was before the break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we became part-time playtesters with on and off assignments in February, January, February this year, right?
Yeah, I think onboarding started in January, but the first, I think our first assignment really started in March.
Yeah. But that's dealing with future sorcery problems
That's
and
not what we're talking about
awesomeness
today.
and good things that are coming down the pipeline. Right now, we're in the now, baby. This is all about what's going on the streets, on the mean tournament grounds and leagues and quarters and cups all around the world. Let's do some deck list deep dives, see what the people are up to, and tell them how they can fix their decks because we know everything about this game now.
All right, let's do it. We're we'll dive right in. What are we starting with?
We're doing the first place league birds, birds, birds deck, right?
Okay, yes, this Avatar of Air deck.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read through the deck list,
Do
or
we
do we
read
want to
through
read
deck
through the
list?
deck list?
I was about to ponder that myself, and I don't think we want to because it's not fun or engaging. But I will. We will be sure to have the deck list in the description if you want to go through card by card with us. We're going to talk about the vast majority of cards, but you know, uh, actually, we'll probably just talk about all the cards in the list as we go through them, anyways, just because sorcery decks are so new and novel and interesting to talk through right now, right?
Sure, sure. That is fair. So this deck, I would describe it as an aggressive deck, trying to get your opponents dead, playing two Torch Hammer trinkets to just spend one resource to basically deal one more damage when you're attacking your opponent, or let your minions win in value trades. Two Devil's Eggs, which basically only do damage. You summon it, then you put it in there. You drop it off on one of their sites, then you leave it there.
Mhm.
Not
Hopefully, you could even burrow it. Maybe summon in the hands of your Palabury bats, and then they bury it underground.
Yep. Then three Rolling Boulders, which is the most Rolling Boulders I've ever seen in a deck list. I
More rolling boulders than lightning bolts. Let's say that's
that's
a statement.
yeah. It is very good at killing your opponent when they're on death's door. This deck can kind of struggle with that. Otherwise, it doesn't have a lot of direct damage. Most direct damage is pretty expensive. Grapple shot can be blocked. Lightning bolt, you roll to see what unit you hit if there's another unit on their space. It's just and Chaos Twister, you have to win a dexterity check to make their minion hit their avatar. So the rolling boulders really kind of answer that. You just get them to death's door with your deviled eggs and attacking their sites, and then devil's eggs, not deviled eggs, and then just push a rolling boulder at them and they die.
Yeah, it's also backed up with a nice little Highland Falconer package to tutor up some airborne beasts with cost 2 or less and summon them. So some good value package. Um, I think the only card that's missing that might be a little surprising, but it might be just not that important to get through your Tortimer trinkets is the Highland Princess to be able to tutor those up.
Yeah, she's missing. I almost wonder if that is a budget consideration. I think this deck looks very very cheap. There's no cores
Yeah,
and
there's no cores or
no
Philo
Philo
Stones,
Stone, but
but
you wouldn't expect Philo Stone in a single element deck. But
yeah,
at least the air core I would expect to see in a optimal version of this mono air aggressive deck.
yeah, for sure. And another notable not inclusions, I would say, are things like Browse, which also could be like a budget consideration. It's also not the most important card when you're like aggressive deck because you don't necessarily care about card selection overall. You just kind of care about raw card quantity over quality. So Browse maybe doesn't make the most sense, but on the note of being like an aggressive deck, I would say something like Thunderstorm might make a lot of sense here as well. Maybe that's kind of what the Rolling Boulder is taking the place of. Uh, Instead of playing those thunderstorms, you get the more consistent damage that you know is going to hit the target that you want it to hit instead of if something's all gunked up and you have to put it on the intersection hoping you're hitting the right intersection, and then if your opponent just walks away it can be kind of awkward. So uh, Thunderstorm does have its pitfalls, but I still think it's an extremely powerful card overall.
Yeah, Thunderstorm's definitely a really powerful card. I tend to like it most in like the mid-range decks that can be somewhat aggressive, but like they're not all in on being aggressive because a lot of the time I've ended up in spots where I play Thunderstorm on their side of the board, and then my minions that want to attack the sites can't because there's a Thunderstorm basically that'll threaten to hit them if they enter those sites. So
Mhm,
it I think it's not at its best in aggressive decks.
for
Though
sure.
I do think browse is probably partially a budget consideration, but also looking at the sites, a lot of the sites don't provide threshold, and I don't think this is a deck that's trying to get really past 4 resources. That's just trying to get to like 3 or 4, then probably stop. Honestly, it's probably moving its avatar of air around to get into position to like fly things around after that. So I I think browse. Well, it is a really powerful card, and I think it. You said it's not great in aggressive decks, and I think there's sometimes it's really good in aggressive decks. It can find your finisher when you put them to death's door. It can find whatever you need to fill out your curve to keep putting pressure on. I think it is pretty good if the threshold isn't an issue, but I can see
Mhm,
threshold being a bit of an issue with 8 colorless sites or
yeah,
typeless sites, 7 typeless sites. I can't count. Two
and the curve
sinkholes.
it does stop pretty low, right? There's nothing over 4. So
Yeah,
Withering Hero, I think is kind of a notable. You can't play 4 Gyre Hippogriffs, so you got to play 1 Withering Hero.
yeah. Witherwing Hero kind of just feels like a bigger Plume Pegasus in this deck. The text on it doesn't seem like it could matter, but I think it's mostly just there as another big flying or big airborne unit.
Yeah, but also since we're stopping at 4, we're not playing Whirling Blades, which is a really powerful card.
Yeah, Whirling Blades is a very notable missing card in this deck. I think that card
Yeah,
is basically very good if you can cast it, and this deck has a decent amount of minions that would be fine to hold Whirling Blade, something like Headless Haunt or Withering Hero. Even the 3 power flyer airborne units or Phase Assassin are all fine users of it.
yeah, and maybe if you're still just planning on keeping low to the ground, I guess if we're expanding this off of the budget considerations, if you can get the Highland Princess in like a core in this deck at that point, then you can kind of plan around having 5 resources at some point without having to commit to like playing that resource necessarily. And you could get things like a roaming monster in here, maybe even a Riddle Sphinx as just like a aggressive source of card advantage as well. The Whirling Blades cost 5, like we just said. So I really think like a maybe that's just pushing that too much into like a mid-rangey direction instead of being a straight aggro person. Admittedly, I'm not the best aggro person in the world. So
Yeah, I think part of the power of Avatar of Air is that you can kind of get your minions to your opponent's side of the board faster because your avatar can just like fling them.
mhm,
So because of that, I think roaming monster, is that what it's called?
yeah,
I think that card is notably weaker because its advantage of getting wherever you need to be faster doesn't really matter as much when you have Avatar of Air who can just throw your minions where you want them to be.
yeah, that's fair.
I think the sites are also fairly interesting. There's 2 bottomless pit and 2 free cities, which are just like great spots to throw your opponent's minions onto.
Mhm,
If their minions are on your air sites or come on your side of the board, or your opponent's playing air sites, and you can walk over there, get your avatar over there, just throwing their minion into a bottomless pit or a free city, and then basically just being able to kill it is really strong.
yeah. And then there's the 3 lighthouses there. There's no water cards in this list, but that's just there as the anti-tech for Avatar of Earth. So making, or also if you just want to play around effects like Bury or Earthquake or things like that. I like that. Well, I shouldn't say I like that, but I would say that seems to be water's primary use in the current era of sorcery as it sits presently. Is that it's mostly an anti its biggest strength is that it's not earth or like that's the reason to put water sites in your deck right now.
I think there's other reasons to play water sites. Like Atlantean Fate is still is definitely one of the stronger cards in the game,
Sure.
and uh there's some other strong water cards. Like we see Death Speakers play the Fey Changeling a lot. Fairy Change.
Yeah.
I Card names are hard.
Yeah.
The the 1 power thing that bounces a minion.
Fey Changeling, yes, that's the
Yes.
right one.
Fey,
You didn't
fairy.
give away any secrets, Michael. You're
They're,
okay.
they're all the same in my mind.
Okay. Anything else about birds before we move on then?
I guess one other thing about getting to 5 resources, it is playing air heavy, so it does have the towers. So tower, even if you're only planning to play 4 sites, you can still play a tower to get to that 5th resource on a key turn. Like maybe you play uh, a headless haunt, and then next turn you play a tower and whirling blades it. That could be a pretty strong turn still. So I think trying to make room for 1 or 2 copies of whirling blades and then getting the core and the princess in sounds awesome to me.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So next up we had a Death Speaker, Ghosts Ahoy.
Uh,
So this appears to be primarily air-based Death Speaker list. There's splashing a little bit of water here and there, not heavy by any means. This it looks like it's just for one Atlantean Fate and one Ghost Ship.
2 ghost ships, 2
Two
ghost
Ghost Ship,
ships.
yeah. But Ghost Ship's kind of interesting, where whenever it enters a site from the void, you may summon a spirit from any cemetery to its location. And oh, it's doing the thing. Oh man, it's got Lord of the Void. I love Lord of the Void, dude. So and Ultimate Horror and Nimbus Jin. This. I love this deck list. This is like everything that I want to be doing in a sorcery list. I love Lord of the Void, dude. I built so many Lord of the Void decks.
Yeah.
It just feels so good. It's just like everything I want to be doing in a card game, right? It's just like you have a thing, nope, get it out of here. You have resources, nope, not anymore. You don't, buddy. Get it all out of here.
Yeah, this is not your usual Death Speaker list. We see 3 copies of Evil Presence, an aura that lets you summon spirits to the affected sites to give them charge, and then when you do that, you return Evil Presence to owner's hand. That's a card I have not seen getting a lot of play. This is just like a dedicated spirits list.
Yeah, there's also Kythera mechanism, which lets you determine all random outcomes. There's 3 lightning bolts, and with Nimbus Jin, you could just it's then a deterministic kill instead of having to potentially deal with other random things. And Headless Haunt, you just get to pick where Headless Haunt goes every turn, which is really powerful. But
Yeah,
what I'm trying to figure out is how are we discarding our big giant idiots?
it's the Nimbus Gens, right? Discard a spell to deal 3 damage to a random unit here.
Okay. I just was trying to see if there were any other like cheap, efficient discard outlets in here. But I guess there's not really any good, cheap, efficient reanimation. It's really just the ghost ship. So I guess it really doesn't matter all that much anyways. It's not like you're trying to like turn 1 reanimate your Lord of the Void or anything like that.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
Yeah, it'd be
It'd be very
crazy.
hard to beat.
Yes, it would be. Um I like Pact of the Devil. I always love that card. Drawing a bunch of cards. Just drawing cards is just so hard in sorcery overall. So that's kind of like the power of Death Speakers, like in the end games, being able to get back your Grandmaster Wizards or your Apprentice Wizards. Just you always have like that constant source of like card advantage to keep turning through, and even doing like simple things like Land Surveyors to keep drawing sites, so you don't have to like tap Death Speaker to draw a site is like something that's pretty important.
Yeah, it's funny you say that you like this card, and I agree. This is a card that I'm pretty happy to play if my deck can support it. But there's only 4 fire sites in this deck, and the 1 ruby core helps, and then you have the priestess to go get it. But to me, that doesn't feel like enough to be worth playing Pact with the Devil. And I would rather just have a little bit more consistent Atlas and have more sites that just produce my main other elements of air and maybe earth for more consistent land surveyors, or water to get to Atlantean Fate a little bit more
There's a
often.
mirror realm. You could mirror realm your ruins,
That's
Michael.
true. It can count as your second fire source, but it it feels very light to me.
Well, like with Highland Princess, you only need to draw one, right? If you draw Highland Princess two to the Ruby Core, then like you're good.
Yeah, so if you count Ruby Core, Highland Princess, Mirror Realm, Ruins, and Color Out of Space all as sources, that's still 7 sources out of 60 total cards between your Atlas and your spellbook. And drawing 2 out of that, that's not a great chance in your even or like even in the towards the middle of the game. It's still you're going to be missing a decent amount of the time.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there are any water cards that exist at this point in time in life that are worth including in here. I can't, I don't want to give away any secrets about the future of water, but I'm trying to remember what exists at this point in time in water's life. I really don't think there's very much. Fey Changeling, I guess we talked about that one already. It can be really good and annoying in Death Speakerless, just buying you that time against aggressive decks and just being something that you can uh, just use out of your graveyard to just keep bouncing. Or even if you have a Genesis effect that you want to recur, it can do that for you as well. It's a bit expensive to do that, but it's still an option that's available to you. So maybe if we're going down this route a little bit, maybe Fade Changeling might start seeing some play here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I imagine they are playing a lot of the best spirits, but there's only 2 Phantasmal Shades, which is a spirit you could play, though it's not. It has bad matches where when it's struck, you destroy it. So I
Yeah,
I
kicking it.
think
Oh, go ahead.
I do think Changeling would be good. It's like kind of buys you time to get to this top end. That's really powerful, and that's kind of the main thing you need when you have multiple Grandmaster Wizards and this Nimbus Jin combo to finish them off. And then you also have more top end than that with like Ghost Ships, Ultimate Horror, Lord of the Void. Just getting to that stuff is going to be challenging.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say also Mother Nature, but that's 3 water threshold, and then that's too much. That's too much water threshold.
Yeah. One other card I really like that's not on this list is Chaos Twister. I think it's just like one of the best removal spells in the game. You have to practice quite a bit to get the blow correct to make sure that you're
You don't
hitting.
blow it.
Yeah. You don't want to blow your Chaos Twister when you blow it when you blow on it. But it is a really powerful card, and I think that um and speaking to getting to the late game, I think Chaos Twister is a great way to do that.
Yeah, it's also interesting that with playing a couple water sites in here, like a non-trivial amount, there's still a couple copies of Berry in here, and I guess there are some Earth cards in here. So there's the 3 Land Surveyor, 2 Berry, 1 Earthquake. Once again, there's still not a lot of Earth sites,
Yeah.
um, but still common sense. I think like is just such a powerhouse and being able to like tutor for any ordinary you want. So like if you need a lightning bolt, it gets that. If you want a removal spell at ordinary, it gets that. Like I really like common sense packages as well. Maybe that's pushing too much magic in the list, but I don't know. I just really like common sense packages.
Yeah, it kind of is spinning your wheels a little bit when you're common sensing, but if you're able to get like cards that are really good in that specific spot, it can be very powerful. And yeah, I think it is a little bit light on Earth sites, but I think that if we cut the fire out of the deck, we could get room for 1 or 2 more
Or even
sites in
like,
there.
do we need 3 evil presence? Like that's a lot of evil presence.
It's the theme of the deck. It's spirits.
Yeah. Hold on. What's the rarity of this card?
Evil presence.
I also want to make sure this card exists. Okay, it's exceptional. Okay, so a summoning sphere exists at the moment, but it's exceptional. I was seeing if you could common sense for a summoning sphere.
Oh yeah. It doesn't give your spirits charge though, which is a big downside
Yeah, yeah,
compared
yeah.
to evil presence. So I do think kind of to your point, 3 evil presence is a lot. It doesn't do anything the second one you draw because you play spirit, it gets charged, and you return the evil presence to its hand to your hand. So then you just like keep reusing the 1 evil presence. So drawing 2 of them is kind of just like not good.
This card exists. Okay, cool. Raised Dead exists right now, Michael. It's an alpha beta. If you're playing Kythera Mechanism and you got Lord of the Voids in your deck, come on. How are you not putting Raised Dead in your deck at this point? Like it just writes itself. You just get to immediately do the thing. It's so good.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd do that. It's
I would.
it
I'd
can be
raise
good.
Dead.
There are spots where it's good, but
And then we're
I
just building a whole different deck, and then we can go back into heavy red threshold again, and we got Kythera mechanism, and then you can use that card that you normally have to randomly discard a card, and instead of playing its cat cost.
the mercenaries.
Yeah. Except then you get to choose to discard your Lord of the Void, and then you get to raise dead it, and it's you just whoop 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 and win the game on the spot. It's so good. But that's not this deck.
Yeah, I think you're building a whole different deck over there, and I think this deck is in a good spot where it is. I just think
Yeah.
like a couple minor adjustments. You can keep the pretty heavy spirit theme. I just don't think the fire is worth it.
I would just make a small change of like 40 or 50 cards and then bring in 40 or 50 other different cards. And it's like basically the same deck, Michael. You know,
Yeah, your avatar didn't change.
maybe.
All right, ready to move on?
Yeah. Are we walking tall
Yes, walking tall. So
on a Pathfinder deck?
yeah, this is a Pathfinder deck from Angerworm. We actually met him at Gen Con last year.
Yeah,
He's
cool dude.
he taught us a lot about sorcery by beating you up, and I gotta get a witness what was happening and learn a lot from him. So that was cool.
Still to this day, I can't believe Free City works the way that did. Come on. Come on.
Free City is a very powerful site.
It still boggles my mind to this day, that site. Is there a Free City in here? No Free Cities. Oh, no.
Yeah, it's Pathfinder, so it's pretty hard to get the sites where you want them. Your atlas can't contain duplicates, and you tap to reveal the topmost side of your atlas, and you can you play it to adjacent void or rubble, and you move there. So you don't have any choice over what site you're playing each turn. So sometimes you're just gonna put a free city in a spot where it's not very good. So because of that, you have to be really careful about sites that don't produce threshold and sites that are only good in certain positions on the board, basically.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's any spicy sites since there's nothing but one-ups here, but nothing too crazy is standing out to me at the moment.
Yeah, the only thresholdless sites we see are one sinkhole and one mirror realm, and mirror realm's not really thresholdless. It helps produce your threshold.
Yeah. So
So
nothing too crazy going on the sites.
yeah, as consistent of an atlas as you can get for a Pathfinder.
Yeah. There's a common sense package in here. Happy to see it in here in this Earth Air list. Being able to grab your blinks, really important for Pathfinder because you want to be activating your ability as often as possible to make sure you're ramping, and blink is just something that really helps you position in order to make sure you can keep activating your ability instead of having to take full turns to like keep walking over.
Yep.
I also see some Chaos Twisters, some grapple shots, a berry. I guess you can grapple shot you can common sense for, but yeah.
Yeah. There's a dispel, which is a pretty commonly seen part of a common sense package. You can disenchant any. I think that's a different card, disenchant, but you can get rid of any artifacts or auras. So just a way to tutor for that.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of life gain in this deck. If you look at it, there's the 2 divine healing, and then there's 3 Dapper Vampires.
Yep.
So really looking to go long, and you also see that in like the Crater Eyes also as like a planned top end card. You have to be playing quite the long game in order to get your Crater Eyes off.
Yeah, so I would say Pathfinder kind of falls into this ramp category. It doesn't actually get ahead on mana early game, but the fact that you don't have to spend a draw to get a site, you just activate your ability, and you're basically drawing and playing a site with just one tap of your avatar, one activation, means that it doesn't cost you anywhere near as much as it does for other avatars to play any site after site 3. Like you start -3 sites, but every time you activate your ability, you're basically going +1, because normally you tap to draw one and then tap to play one, but Pathfinder gets both, or you spend your draw at the start of the turn.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Pathfinder kind of falls in this like mid-range ramp package where they get to play much more top end than most other decks can get away with. And part of doing that is you need some life gain to make sure you're not dying while you're getting to that top end. You're going to get there faster and at less less expense than other decks, but you still can die to aggressive decks when you're doing that. So the divine healings help a lot with keeping alive, and Dapper Roll Vampire is just it's a pretty strong card if you're looking to get looking to stay alive for a long time, basically.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out if the air's cuttable.
The air is cuttable.
Yeah. I just want to like, but since there's so much overlap between air and fire right now, right? Like they have pretty similar packages at the moment, right? Where they have good efficient kind of beaters and then burn spells. Uh I guess, and then they also have the maneuvering spells as well, where air has blink and then the red spells give like the plus movement. I can't remember that card's name or whatever right now.
Yeah, I think in Pathfinder specifically, Blink is really important to get your Pathfinder to a spot that you can activate your ability. Because if you
Blaze is the
basically
card I was thinking of. Sorry,
what?
Blaze was the card I was thinking of. That's all.
Yeah, so Blaze doesn't really work with repositioning your avatar and activating the ability in the same turn. Whereas you can like blink your avatar over and then activate the ability if your opponent's like playing their sights in a way to try to block you off from using your ability, basically. Because that's one of the ways you can kind of counter a Pathfinder deck is make sure they don't have any spots that they can Pathfind at.
Yeah, that's fair. Any notable artifacts missing from this list? Not really. There's the cores.
Yep.
Everything else seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, we see the 2 cores, no Philostone again, and no Highland Princess to go find the cores. Highland Princess being double airs, kind of hard to reliably cast early game, especially in Pathfinder where you just don't know what sides you're going to flip over. So I kind of like that exclusion. Philostone, since Pathfinder doesn't have the issue of, again, when they play a site from their deck, it costs 1 action. It doesn't cost a card in an action. It costs just like the 1 tap activate. So they don't really need Philostone as much as other decks probably. And then the core is helping with threshold is really important. Philostone doesn't provide that.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just showing my colors as this being a pet card, but since this list is kind of looking to go a little bit bigger and go a little bit longer, I'd really like to see a pendulum apparel around here. It's my jam. I love some pendulum apparel.
Yeah, I think Pendulum is a very good kind of slow the game down removal spell.
Yeah, if you're just trying to like activate your ability and like develop, it also would like help stave off like some more aggressive spells because since it has that like the first initial swing is just so good at cleaning up so much of the board.
Yep, agreed.
Any other final thoughts about this sweet Pathfinder list? I guess we didn't talk about like Root Spider. What do you think about Root Spider?
Root Spider is a really, really strong card. You can basically like tuck it under your avatar, and it's really, really hard for them to attack you. Basically, it can keep you from getting Death's Door or protect you when you're on Death's Door. If your opponent doesn't have any real reach to get to you, then Root Spider can be basically lights out for some decks.
Yeah. I guess on the note of like water kind of being important, there's the copies of Earthquake and the Berry and these Root Spiders. So I can see like if you just plop one of your units, important units down, or your key artifacts on like a water site, then it could be kind of tricky to get those out.
Yeah, it can definitely blunt a lot of what this deck can do to disrupt you because Earthquake doesn't. It just moves things on water sites, and Barry doesn't do anything against things on water sites. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. It's time for the classics. We're going back to the classics. We got a sorcerer for Earth Fire Sorcerer from the Death's Door podcast. It looks like.
Okay.
I love the sorcerer. Just tapping to draw like a spell. Can't get enough. I love it.
Yeah, I think Sorcerer is just like very, very strong. You generally want to play Sorcerer with a lower curve because you kind of have your ability to draw a spell later on. You just want to play like 2 cheap spells once you get to the late game every turn. So Sorcerer, very, very powerful, I think, especially when built aggressively. We see both cores and Philostone in this deck just helps play your stuff fast. And I talked about this a lot on our first sorcery episode, how cores are so much more efficient than playing and or drawing and playing a site because it takes 2 activations basically versus the one of drawing, and then it doesn't cost your avatar's action to play a core. It just costs 1 resource, and that's a lot easier to pay. So it makes sense to see all of these in an aggressive sorcerer deck.
This is the most Michael Hamilton list I've ever seen in my gosh dang life. We got the colicky dragonettes. We got the quarrelsome kobolds. We got the slumbering giantess to help with like it gets the combo with the pings and the strikey doos. We got the vile imps. This is the most Michael Hamilton efficient deck I've ever seen. I'm like traumatized by all these cards at this point in my life. You just so efficient.
Yeah, I have played a lot of these cards in my time. I think most decks usually that have violence usually start with 4 violence. I could see it being 3 because of like meta reasons. If your opponents aren't playing a lot of things that die to it, it gets a lot worse. Though having 3 slumbering giantess already, I feel like I want 4 imps.
Yeah.
And then
I
you
was going to
also
see how many
have
deserts are in here, but there's not even any. Oh no, there's
there's
4
4.
remote deserts. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, you also can pair the deserts to kill 3 power things. So yeah, I think imp is very very strong. We see 2 imperial roads. That's a card that hasn't come up in any of the other decks yet, but it's very good in aggressive decks. Again, you play it, your opponent gets to play a site adjacent to your imperial road, and then you get to. So it kind of gets you ahead on resources earlier, and you get to use the resources right away, whereas your opponent has to wait basically because it's your turn. So you get to spend your 2 resources, and they're getting their 1 resource back. And if you ever play Imperial Road when your opponent has no sites in hand, it feels like you're getting away with something.
I'm scratching my head because I'm seeing this card and I did not realize it was an alpha beta card. Scorched Earth is an alpha beta card?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the 3 bedrock for the Scorched Earth bedrock combo where if your opponent has like a big thing that's on one of your on your bedrock, then you can just Scorched Earth it and it's all good. But the other combo that goes with like Scorched Earth though is Roots. And there's even an Imperial Road. No, I guess not. Uh,
You're thinking of Crossroads, right?
yeah, Crossroads. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the next deck. But
Yeah.
yeah, Roots is a very powerful card. But
Yeah, but if you're being like a low to the ground aggressive deck, I don't know. I kind of and you even have the 2 sinkholes. Like I feel like a roots is like not like necessarily something you have to like play for 100% of the time, but it's like something like when it pops up, it can be like a nice like backdoor like get out of jail free card for a deck like this, um, potentially. But yeah,
yeah, I agree. And then with Sorcerer also, you can like refill on whatever you need very easily. So
Mhm.
you're not ever like in trouble. I guess basically you can always just get what you need. And when you're low to the ground, a lot of the time, if you can get your opponent low and then they start getting to their bigger stuff and then you roots reset the board and start the game over basically, then and your opponent's low and you're still at a healthy life total, then that can be a pretty powerful position for you to be in.
Yeah. What do you think about this one Wicked Witch floating around here? The 4 cost 2 power spellcaster. Other nearby minions have -2 power.
It's it's
It feels so out of
interesting.
place, right?
It does feel out of place. It does play nicely with some of the red removal where you put this down next to their thing and then you cast, let's say they have a five power thing and you put Wicked Witch next to it and then you firebolts it, then that just cleanly kills it. So it's not the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but I don't know if it's what I would go with. I would probably make room for that 4th imp before I put Wicked Witch in my deck.
Cost 4, yeah. Or even like maybe even like a harpies or something like that. Get some flyers going on in here.
Yeah,
Card's good. That's another Michael Hamilton classic card.
I do like harpies though, because of how prominent imps are in the metagame. I think that people kind of stay away from 2 power units a lot, and so that means harpies doesn't have any like prey, so they're a little bit worse than I rated them on our initial set review. But I do still think harpies are pretty powerful and honestly a little bit underplayed. I have not seen a lot of harpies since looking at sorcery deck lists.
Yeah, and another card that I don't see pop up at all that I really like, and I think it's just an extremely powerful card, is Infiltrate.
Mhm.
Um, just being able to like gain control of like any enemy minion and like do whatever you want with it until it deals damage is just really powerful. I guess like sorcery is significantly more like aggressive and like tempo-y and not tempo-y, but like efficient than like maybe we were giving it credit for at first. But I still feel like when infiltrate kind of like the swings and momentums it can generate are pretty ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I think infiltrate's really powerful. A lot of the decks that are particularly vulnerable to it make considerations for it in their minions. If you get rid of the stealth on the minion they infiltrate, then it you regain control of it now. So
Mhm.
a lot of the slower decks, either as part of a common sense package, play the I can't. It's like a scent hound that gets rid of their stealth, or we saw in the one of the decks we looked at earlier, the spirits deck that has a lot of top end. We saw Hounds of Onderos, which says nearby enemies permanently lose stealth. So
That's fair.
that's another
Yeah.
answer to infiltrate.
Yeah, stealth definitely did get a huge buff with the rules update. So yeah, I guess there's a lot more stealth floating around too, or stealth hate floating around.
Mhm. And just getting the splash damage against infiltrate is pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Ready to move on to the last deck?
Yeah. Last thing I want to say about the sorcerer deck, it's still, even though it is an aggressive deck, it still made room for the 2 copies of common sense and 2 earthquakes. So it's not all in on being aggressive. It's got the scorched earth like you talked about, but also made room for a common sense package and some earthquake as some bigger removal.
Yeah, like it a lot.
Okay, last deck.
We were just singing the praises of Roots, and here we go. First place in the Courtesan Cup. Uh, there was even a very long, wonderful primer written about this on the Sorcery website if you want to go check it out. Give a really long, detailed interview about like kind of the tips and tricks to it. He's also very active on like answering questions about this deck. Like if you pull up the deck list and like ask a question on it, seems like he's really good about like answering and talking about it. So really cool to see somebody engaged in a community like this, and it's nice to see that the community is finally picking up on how good Roots is. Roots is so good, dude. Blow up everything, everything.
Yeah, it's strong. It's strong. Blowing up everything is good. I
But
think the biggest vulnerability to roots is if you don't build your deck around it too much, then sometimes it can be a liability when you draw it. And if you do build your deck around it, it's a unique. You won't draw it every game. You can draw it a lot with the mulligan system and another site that we see for the first time in this deck of decks that we're looking at, Crossroads, which says look at your next 4 sites. Or Genesis, look at the next 4 sites. Put 3 on the bottom of your atlas. So you basically get to look at the top 4 and keep 1. So that kind of digs you to your roots very well. But it's another thresholdless site, and Roots is thresholdless. So it is a really real cost to be going for Roots. So it's definitely worth it when things line up.
yeah, another site that I don't think we've seen yet, even in a lot of these fire lists that we've looking at, is River of Flame, and I really like that site as well. I guess there hasn't been too much like magic floating around in a lot of these lists, but just having a spellcaster on his site's like incredibly powerful. It's like one of the few ways in the game to shoot like magic spells underground, since it technically occupies both things. If you want to shoot like fireballs underground to kill like a root spider or something like that, then it's one of the few ways to do it. So I just think it's a really cool card.
Yeah, we did see it in the Sorcerer deck as well, but I agree. It is a really powerful card. You have to have specifically fire spells to really take advantage of it because it's a fire
Sure.
spellcaster. But mostly fire spells are the ones that care most about positioning anyway. So that's the ones that you'd care about casting specifically from it.
And look at this. There's an infiltrate floating around in here. This guy's just a man after my own heart.
Yeah, this does look like a kind of deck that you would play.
I love Rootsin, dude. Roots and roots and roots. One day people will figure out the Roots Lord of the Void combos, you know, and that's when you really get them.
What is the Roots Lord of the Void combo?
Either you blow up all their stuff with Lord of the Void, or you blow up all their stuff with Roots. It's a combo.
Okay, if you say so.
It's a
So
win. It's a win-win combo. You know, it's either you win the game or you win the game combo.
yeah, one thing I love about this deck is just how many basically vanilla units it's playing. It's just playing 2 sandworms, 3 Amazon warriors, just stats.
Yeah, because at post Roots, you just want efficient beaters. You just are like, okay, I've blown up the board, and now I just want to get to a quick little 3 resources, play Autumn Unicorn. And what are you gonna do about it? Figure it out.
Yeah, the light threshold on Amazon Warriors is actually really really important because of roots. So if you start your turn and you have, let's say, 5 resources, then you have your 5 resources. You play a sinkhole, you go up to 6 resources, you blow up your roots, or you have it the other way where you have the sinkhole already in play. You play roots and blow it up, go to 6 resources. Then you still have those 6 resources. You just don't have any thresholds. So you need if you have just one bedrock, that gives you the earth threshold, and you can just play Amazon Warriors out, which is really really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just admiring this list more the more I look at it. Then now I'm seeing the scorched earth for the bedrock and the roots combo. Like I was saying, it's like everything I said prior is like paying off in this deck list. I was like, this thing's really good, and this guy's like, yeah, that's really good. And I'm like, oh yeah, this card's really good. It's like, and this guy's like, yeah, I won this tournament playing this card. It's really good. I was like, I like this guy. Smart.
That's why when you started talking about roots in the last deck, I'm like, hang on, you gotta wait a second.
Yeah. It's a common sense package floating around in here. Really powerful.
Yeah, even Blaze is a card you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I would say the one card that's popped up quite a few times now, we haven't really talked about it yet, though, is Gigantism, the 4
Yep.
cost double earth, give it allied unit +6 power this turn. I mean, at worst, it's kind of like an earth fireball that deals like 6 damage, right? Like, still pretty good.
Yeah, you have to have a minion that's ready to attack their site, but it is
You can target your avatar.
sure. But if you target your avatar, you have to be in range to attack their site, and you have to spend your turn attacking their site. You really want to be
You'll
doing
never
that.
see or it coming.
Yeah. Okay. uh,
I like the one of Oasis floating around in here. Get your water site, and then another Aqueduct floating around on the sideboard.
yeah, just anti-barrier earthquake stuff.
Mm-hmm. 2 earthquakes floating around. And I really don't. I don't have a single negative thing to say about this list. The only weird card that I never think all that much about, but maybe I'm learning something here. Maybe it's time for me to reevaluate. Like everything in my life is just this entangled terrain.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say a different card. Okay,
What card?
I thought you were gonna say something about Angel's Egg because I know you're not that high on Life Gain.
No, I know. I guess I just glaze over that card every time I see it in a deck list. Like it's like okay, sure. I guess like that would be my biggest critique. As I really don't like Angels. I think it's
Sure.
pretty lame.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason to play Entangled Terrain is you're gonna play an aura to stop them from killing you for 3 turns, and ideally, by the time this aura ends, you're rootsing them, right? So you're not trying to you don't care if it goes away after after a few turns if you're gonna wrath away the whole board before that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And only 1 copy on it, so you're not gonna flood out on it. It seems solid,
Yeah.
and you can common sense for it. It's an ordinary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I realized after I looked. I was like, maybe I never realized that card was an ordinary before. So I'll have to take a look at that more for sure. I love this deck list. I love everything about it. I see why it won a tournament. This person's very smart. That's all I have to say.
Cool.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I remember Seer was an avatar that I was very low on at first.
Mm-hmm.
When I read Seer, I'm like, this doesn't seem worth it, like your whole avatar's ability. But being able to have that consistent or more consistent access to the roots combo, I think, is basically the reason that I would play Seer. Otherwise, I'd probably just play something else. But I think the roots combo or any specific combo where you're trying to assemble like 2 or 3 cards together, Seer kind of fits that. But I've never been a big combo guy, so I like my cards to just be good on their own.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, speaks to more of the game design as a whole around sorcery as to why Seer's ability is good. I don't think we're used to playing card games where one ofs play such a huge role in like at the outcomes of games, where the unique system just fundamentally makes it so that there's just a little bit more variance, and you're just not going to see these crazy powerful cards as often. Um, but Seer being able to help dig or make those more crazy powerful cards pop up more consistently is really powerful when there's just such a power disparity between like the ordinaries and the uniques.
Yeah, agreed.
So I like it. I like where the community's at. I like where we're at in Sorcery right now, but I'm excited for the future, Michael. I'm excited for everybody to see all the wonderful, cool cards that are coming out soon in Arthurian Legends.
Yeah,
It's right around the corner.
It's a little bit of time still, but it's gonna be sweet when it comes out.
Right around the corner. It'll be here before you know it, dude.
Sure. I'm excited to see what everyone comes up with all these cards that I have been getting to experiment with for a while.
There's some good stuff in there.
Yep, there is. That's for sure. Some powerful things.
Cool.
Some cool things and some powerful things.
And some fun, silly things that are just fun. That's also an element of the game, Michael. There's also fun. There's also fun cards in there.
Cool, fun. Pretty similar.
I am both cool and fun, so checks out. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, the next time you're being both cool and fun, always remember, mind your manners. Thanks for watching.